And all of a sudden he comes down, we get a few more pumps, and apparently everything's going to change. Well, I hope it does change at the end of the day, because no one can go through this again. It's wrong. It's wrong.
We ask what's being done to stop this happening again.
Also tonight, a year after the death of a Bristol couple by a repeat offender, calls for tougher sentences for dangerous drivers. The dangers of travelling abroad to get treated for Lyme disease. And the mild weather affecting our wildlife. Harvest mice born in January. Good evening. Flood victims in Somerset have been promised by the Environment Secretary that action will be taken within 6 weeks. Owen Paterson's been in the county seeing the relief operation, but many see the apparent lack of action as another blow. Well, local people say they're used to empty promises and they'll believe it when they see it. The leader of the county council said he was disappointed the minister didn't come with money. And the Euro MP Graham Watson said he was angered by today's announcements. Our Somerset correspondent Clinton Rogers reports.
What is our Environment Minister doing? He's absolutely inept.
On the Somerset Levels, they were preparing for the Environment Secretary early this morning.
Minister, what sort of reception are you expecting on the Levels?
If he didn't know before, the roadside placards were a clue.
Why was this not done ages ago? Why have you only started doing this now?
That's it, ignore the people.
And when he arrived on the edge of the flooded village of Moorland, he'd have been left in no doubt about the strength of the anger here.
We were flooded last year. Where was he last year at the end of the day? You know, what happened then? A year on, again, disaster strikes. We're flooded yet again.
This is where the minister had come to see for himself the scale of the flooding. Just one of the pumping stations operating day and night to clear water from 65 square miles of flooded farmland. 3 weeks on, the water is still hardly receding. In fact, last week, more houses succumbed to the water. The victims were keen to know whether the Secretary of State had come with an answer, preferably money, to help them.
A week ago, I was in a house with a grown man who cried in front of me because his house was under a foot of water. Do you think anything you've said today is going to reassure him that you actually are going to do something fast?
I've just said I totally appreciate how shocking.
Are you going to do anything fast?
And therefore, to answer your question directly, I have asked all the interested parties to give me a concrete plan in 6 weeks' time which will provide satisfaction over the next 20 years. Now, that may well involve dredging the two main rivers, but also will involve clear long-term plans to hold water back long-term.
97% of James Winslade's farm is underwater, has been for weeks. So was he encouraged today?
It's a step in the right direction. It's a positive note. We're still going to be actively pushing until we actually see the diggers and everything going on with the dredging.
And while the minister cast an eye over the historic diesel pumps working flat out to clear the floodwaters, in a barn just round the corner, the future of farming was making an appearance. Question is, what sort of future will that be? Clinton Rogers, BBC Points West, on the Somerset Levels.
Well, the problems may be on the ground, but the full extent of the damage can be better understood from the air. Well, John Kay has been up in a helicopter today to get a full picture of what's going on.
When you get up here and you look out over the whole area and you see how much of it has been flooded, it really is an astonishing sight. There's Muchelney, the island community, and when you see it from the air you realise just how cut off it is, with little boats having to take people backwards and forwards. We've seen homes entirely cut off as well, island communities in their own right. Thousands of acres of farmland utterly submerged. How long is it going to be before this land can be used productively again? The floodwater just goes on and on. mile after mile. You lose a sense of perspective really about what is a river, what is a field, almost where does the coast begin. It's a very strange sensation seeing this part of this county from the air.
That report there from John Kay, and there are actually more helicopter shots on our Facebook page as well. We move on to other news, and a 3-year-old boy has died after being knocked down in the street in Bristol. The accident happened in Bedminster and involved a Land Rover with a trailer. The boy was taken to Bristol Children's Hospital, but doctors were unable to save him. Here's Sarah Jane Bungay.
It was around 10:15 this morning when the accident happened, close to the junction of two busy Bedminster streets. Officers are still investigating how a portable cabin being towed on a trailer by a 4x4 became detached, hitting the youngster who was on the pavement. He was rushed to Bristol Children's Hospital with serious injuries but died shortly after. This evening, several bunches of flowers have been left here at the scene of the accident on Parsons Street. One says, "To our beautiful nephew, taken too soon." Another, "Rest in peace. Our thoughts are with your family at this sad time." Parts of Parsons Street and Hastings Road were shut for several hours. Police say the driver of the Land Rover is helping them with their inquiries but not under arrest. A specialist police liaison officer is supporting the relatives of the little boy. Sarah Jane Bungay, BBC Points West in Bedminster.
Will the wet weather continue? Ian will be here with a full forecast later.
Also, have you seen the sign?
A little bit of Hollywood glamour comes to Bristol, but what's this new sign all about and how did it get here? Join me later.
All that's still to come, but first, a 21-year-old man who drowned in the centre of Bath last week has been named as Christopher Taylor. He was a student at the University of Bath, where he was studying chemistry. His family live in Merseyside and say they've been devastated by his death.
A Wiltshire man's been sentenced to 16 years in prison for murdering his wife. Friends say Debbie Simister was planning to leave her husband James Simister when he killed her. Police found her body in the couple's home in Amesbury last April.
Now, Parliament is tonight debating whether to increase sentences for drivers who are repeatedly convicted of dangerous driving.
The debate, led by a West MP, comes exactly a year after Ross and Claire Simons died when serial offender Nicholas Lovell crashed into their tandem while the couple were outside.